is having on brands. As an example, I've worked with the Adidas for many years. They now have a problem that they've built up their entire product strategy based on that. They put shoes on Beckham and Kaká and other top players, and they think that they have the top shoes, and then people go into Intersport here in Luleå, for example, and they say, I saw that Beckham were playing this Predator. They're like, fine, we also have this cheaper products with the same name. They're like, no, I want the orange one with the black stripes. Yes, but we don't have that because it's not for sale in Sweden. Then I'll buy it online in England. And that's what's really happening. Big brands now on a global scale are losing their entire middle segment. That is all based on hero products because no one want the middle products. They want the product they're seeing somewhere. And they can find it. Before they could not find it. They didn't even know how it looked because they couldn't go back and check it. And then in the end, we can also bring our camera in the mobile phone. We have the bar scanner code. And then we shoot it on the product like this, and we get the best price in the store if we didn't remember to check out Price Runner. And in Germany and UK, if they don't lower the price with 800 crowns, you just click buy on the phone, and then you get it with the mail the day after. This is going to enter every business. In order for you to be stronger here, you have to understand what these brands are understanding, the review brands, for example. You have to understand the language of the link, because that's really what it's all about. So I'll run you through a model I'm using when I'm talking integrated communication. Basically, your brand online, whatever you're representing, consists out of two things: your services and your offerings, and your content that you use to sell your services and your offering. This could actually be offline as well. Your store where you sell shoes and you have salesmen that are very, very nice. The more value you provide your traffic with, the people that are coming on to your digital presence, the more you give them back, like this deeper review site with the camera, for example, the more traffic you will gain. That's why it's extremely important in the future to focus on real value. Not trying to dress things up in something that it isn't, but instead saying this is what we're good at, this is what we're really good at. If you can't provide people with true value because your product doesn't really, compare to the competitors, you just have to go back to the drawing board and start looking at your product, because people are going to see that it's not as good as the competitors. That you cannot fool people into not finding the information online. And when it comes to traffic, I'll take an example when it comes to value-based traffic. This is Michelle Phan.
We all know Lady Gaga is making a huge impression in the music industry. She's fresh, innovative, and talented. This tutorial will show you how to replicate those.
This is a tutorial when Michelle Phan is showing people how to do a makeup like Lady Gaga. It got 8.6 million views on YouTube. If you look at some other things she's done here, she has 1.2 million views, 3.6 million views, 2.2 million views, and some of the other ones are Lady Gaga. So she's obviously doing something good. She's basically providing young women with the value of this is how you do a makeup. And yet, if we think about it, have you ever seen a makeup brand giving out the value on how you do a makeup? Because the makeup brands, they use Michelle Pfeiffer, stand like this and say, it's beautiful, you should get it. And they don't have any traffic. So what do they do now? Well, 3 weeks ago, they bought Michelle Phan. But this is what I'm talking about. This is also consumer power. Michelle Phan, who's an everyday person, sits at YouTube making videos of herself, helping young women to do makeups. She's getting the traffic, not the brands, because the brands are still throwing money on advertising, also online. They're doing 7-minute videos on why their product is the best, not how to use their product. So if you provide people with this value, you are going to start getting traffic, but it's extremely important that you provide it with an open value. Then you can start pushing your traffic towards the services and offering you have. Start to convert them, and then we're into conversion. Conversion, for you who don't know what it is, it's all about 10 people coming to the site, how many people end up buying something, basically coming out on the other side, spending money, or downloading a PDF, or getting your phone number, or going to your store. That means that we have to focus on usability. You cannot build a site because it's cool or it's nice or it's, treat your online presence in a way that it's a catalog that people will look at. People only spend seconds before they take a decision to leave or continue. Here's your objectives. Make sure you have a digital presence where you provide tons of value, and then make sure you use maximum usability. And to be frank, the closer you look, your site looks to Facebook, the bigger the chance is that people will understand where to click, because that's where most people spend their time online. Then you have your success metrics. If you provide value, you will get traffic. If you don't get money, or you don't get people calling you, you don't have people visiting you, something is wrong on this way. You probably don't have, you haven't started converted people. When you look at online businesses, they constantly work with A and B testing. They always launch 2 versions. They continue with the best one, and then continue with 2 new versions, and they constantly change. The funny thing is, most established brands, they don't do anything of this online. Whereas if you go to ICA, they know exactly where the milk stands. They know exactly where the cereal stands. If they would see in their, if their manager would see like, wow, we only got 3,000 crowns in the cashier machine today. Usually we get 30,000. He would immediately ask himself, what's the problem? When it comes to digital communication, most brands say like, oh, we don't have any traffic. Maybe we should do something about it next year. We all have this problem. All this content is starting to become social, which means that we can put the content both on our own sites, but also on YouTube, Facebook, Flickr. We can use live stream to stream live. If we have a lot of PDFs, we should put them on Scribble and SlideShare as well. Make sure that all your content is out there. And then when it comes to traffic to this presence here, most brands are still spending money on traditional advertising, meaning banners, print, advertising, and PR, etc. If they know how to use the internet, they might spend money on search engine marketing, like Nikon did not do, and then they'll get more traffic. At least they only pay for the traffic that they are getting. If they're good at providing people with the value, they'll get a lot of links, and they will start showing up in the hits in Google. And people will start to share the value in social networks. The thing is that these 2 things, they interact, which means if you're starting a blog, for example, and you're providing people with a lot of value, and you think that, we only have 30 people visiting our blog every day, and it's not a big number, and it's not important for us. But if Svenska Dagbladet and a couple of magazines start linking to your blog out of some reason, the thing you're doing here might have an effect in Google. Because when people search for your car or for your product or whatever you do, and you show up in the search here, it's because that you have something here that people are linking to. As long as you don't have anything here, people will not link to it, and then you will never show up in Google. So that blog or that, those online videos or manuals or whatever you're sharing down here, they might not be the things that people are finding, but it will be the things that are affecting on how you show up on Google. That's why you also have to start thinking about an online presence that is moving from here to here instead, where you think about your presence, but also make sure that you are everywhere else. Of course, we have to make sure the brands is visible there, so you make sure that people get what brand it's coming from. But it's better to show a YouTube video on YouTube and on Vimeo and Blip and Vidler and on your own site than only on your own site, because otherwise you will have to pull all the traffic to your site. And it's not something strange. Nike, that I worked with in 98, 99, they started doing that already with Nike football. But now they're focusing, I would say 75% on all their brand sites, all the content on their brand sites are crash courses on how to become a better player. It's not advertising anymore. It's more focused on giving people back things. American Express have open forum in the States, as an example. An entire forum targeted towards small and medium business owners, where they pay Richard Branson money to sit in an interview and talk about innovation and management and marketing instead of paying for an ad, because it's the same money. They still have to pay a lot of money to make people look at something that comes from American Express. Harley Davidson, where you, for example, can download coordinates for your GPS and plan your next trip with your Harley Davidson. Or Apple, for example, who has the Pro section where you have tons of technique tips and interviews and content that is based around what value you can actually do with their products. In order for you to have effect of this, or gain effect, you really have to start moving budgets here. It's the media money, it's the money you pay for TV presence, for example. That money has to be started, you have to start move it. Already in 2006, when I worked with Adidas, we had about 17 to 20% of the entire media budget was pushed to producing content that people could share. And I saw a study in Sweden that the general figure in Sweden is that 7% of the money goes into digital communication, but that's more of the production phase. So if you take H&M, for example, that has about 15 million crowns on a typical advertising campaign. If they would move 1.5 million crowns to creating valuable content here, they would pretty soon see an effect. If they focused on helping people, how do you dress yourself, how do you make up, how do you do a makeup, how do you make sure you style yourself for the next New Year's party? Instead, they are still focusing on creating content that sells their ads. Why this is all changing pretty fast right now is that we're seeing that content technology and distribution is becoming democratized. So we're really moving from a world where these guys had the power. These are the four major board of directors in the major record companies like Sony, BMG, and so on. What they've been sitting on the last couple of years is basically this expensive technology. So this is a classical studio, costs many millions. So if someone like, for example, Robin, for example, if she would come in here 15 years ago and say, I want to record a record, they had the power to tell her, this is where you're going to go on tour, this is how you're going to look, this is the music you're going to play, and this is how we're going to make sure it's produced. Because she could not produce her own music. We all know that Robin now owns her own record company. But even the smallest, so like the freshly started musician, can sit at home today with a software and a home studio for 30,000 Swedish crowns. That produces the same, that has the same producing power that this studio had that cost over 100 million crowns. So what happens then is that suddenly we're seeing how musicians are starting to destroy this industry. And on top of that, the distribution is now more MP3s, and we're using Napster. Nowadays, we're using Spotify, and we can see how it's all changing because people are getting access to the technology that has been producing these things. People are starting to share things under new kind of licensing. This is Creative Commons, which is the biggest license for basically if I have something, for example, this presentation that is being filmed, I'm always doing this under Creative Commons. So take it, do whatever you want. If you want to, change it, do that, as long as you refer that I was the one standing on stage saying all this. So we're seeing this coming into technologies where, for example, I use my blog and I'm having WordPress as a content management system in the back end. WordPress is a content management system that I would say all clients and all agencies here could replace all your online activities with WordPress. It's free, it takes 5 minutes to install, and it beats the shit out of Episerver and Interwoven and SharePoint and Tridion and whatever they're called. The thing is, that, for example, New York Times is running WordPress. So it's not only small companies like me who's running WordPress. Big companies are now starting to understand this. And as another example, Microsoft had 30 million blogs under the live platform where you use Hotmail that they moved about 1 month ago from their own platform to WordPress because Microsoft couldn't afford to keep up with the development in this new platform. WordPress then is an open source product, which means that this system is built by about 20,000 people that basically share code. So that's the way it becomes free. We can use Drupal, for example, which is another system, and whitehouse.gov, meaning the White House in the States, is built on Drupal. And the first thing they did when they launched the site was the first news was, it's done, here's the code, download it and do whatever you want with it. So we're seeing how information is becoming shared in different ways. Technology is going down in cost. We're seeing how, for example, here in Los Angeles, you have 30,000 people in Los Angeles that is moving over to the Google Gmail platform, because then they don't have to host their own servers. They don't have to pay Microsoft a lot of licensing money, and it becomes, they gain a lot of money on that, earn a lot of money on that. In Sweden, we have Åhléns, for example, who just switched from Novell, old system, to Google instead. And this is exactly the kind of things that happen to the mobile industry. We have Sony Ericsson here, for example. They have about